The first whisper came as a thin line on a tired screen, a soft ripple across the black sea of space that the watchers of the outer array almost ignored. The junior observer sat with a cup of cold synth tea and blinked at the line, thinking it was noise. Then the line returned, steadier, colder. Like a needle touching the skin of the stars, he called the shift lead, and together they listened in silence as the signal sharpened into a steady beat. Slow and exact, not a cry for help, not a trade code, not a pirate ping. Just a rhythm that felt like footsteps in an empty hall. "It's human," the lead said, voice low. The word moved through the room like a cold wind. The junior observer looked at the others. Some smiled with doubt, some frowned. He had heard stories of humans, but stories were smoke. Legends told by pilots who drank too much at station bars. A death-world species, quiet and strange. Moving in straight lines like knives, no one had seen their fleets up close in a century. No one wanted to. The signal did not speak. It simply tapped. 5 beats, a pause, 5 beats, a pause. The pattern looked simple but felt wrong. The analysis unit tried to map it and failed, then tried again and again, until it gave a gentle tone and printed a message. The junior observer read it out loud. "This is not a call, this is a step." No one laughed. The shift lead sent a priority note to High Command, and the room grew very still, as if the station itself held its breath. Ships of the galaxy's strongest empire sat in patrol arcs, not far off, bright hulls silvered by the quiet sun of a nameless system. The captain of the nearest cruiser took the data and smiled. "A human prank," he said, "a ghost tale." His crew laughed out of habit, but their eyes watched the same thin line on their screens. The signal stayed at the edge of their reach, never closer, never farther, as if it wanted them to walk after it like children in a dark market. "Should we follow?" the navigator asked. The captain looked at the map and made a small gesture. "We will not chase a shadow, we are the light," he said. Yet he turned their bow a fraction toward the signal, just a fraction, just to watch. The cruiser drifted forward, engines humming. The signal slid back like a tide, always 5 beats, always a pause. At the outer array, more staff arrived, faces pale and curious. The station master ordered the big dish to lean hard and catch any sideband. The dish moved with a groan like old ice. Static hissed, then cleared. And another layer of the signal showed itself, a thin whisper under the beats. Almost too soft to hear. It was not a word, not a code, more like a voice heard through a wall. The junior observer leaned in and felt his neck hair lift. "It sounds like water dropping into a well," he said. The lead nodded. "Or boots on metal," someone added. And nobody smiled this time. High Command sent back a short answer. "Do not interfere." The station master read it and did not blink. "We will observe," she said. But her hand tightened around the rail. On the patrol cruiser, the captain received similar orders. "Hold position, monitor, do not provoke." The captain obeyed, but spoke softly to the deck. "If the shadow lands on our deck, we will light it." The crew murmured their assent. Hours passed like long strings of beads. The signal never changed. Then the junior observer noticed a new flicker, a shorter note tucked in the pause. He marked it with a blue dot, then another and another. The dots formed a faint curve on the display, a curve that pointed not outward, but inward. Toward them, "It is drawing a circle," he whispered. The station master stared. "Around what?" she asked. The analysis unit spat out a new map. The curve's center sat not in empty space, but exactly on the patrol cruiser's coordinates. When the station master called the cruiser, the captain answered with calm courtesy. "We see your concern," he said. "We will hold our course." His voice was smooth. But he had already raised shields and cut power to every soft system that made extra noise. Only the bone of the ship remained awake. He walked to the viewport, a vast window of hardened crystal, and looked into the black. Nothing moved. Yet the glass felt colder. A young sensor tech on the cruiser, scales pale as frost, whispered to her console. "Show me the hidden thing." She dimmed everything, then ran a blind sweep with no predictive filter. The screen filled with snow. The snow parted. There it was. Not a ship, Not a body, but a hole, a neat mouth in the dark, a place where the stars did not shine as they should. The tech's tail curled tight. "Sir," she said, "there is a shadow-eating light." The captain came to her shoulder and saw it too. Small, perfect wrong. He opened a channel to the outer array. "We confirm a visual anomaly," he said. The station master answered at once. "We see it as well." Her voice was steady. "Recommend withdrawal." The captain looked at the map, at the signal, at his crew, at the orders on his wrist screen. He thought of pride, of fear, of the stories told to young officers about courage and calm. "We will step back," he said. But his hands never reached the command because the signal changed. The 5 beats stopped, the pause stretched thin. A deep tone rolled through every hull in the region, not loud, not violent, only heavy, as if someone pressed a thumb on the heart of the ships. Lights dimmed, bodies leaned forward, and then the tone was gone. The junior observer at the array gasped. What was that? The analysis unit had no answer. But the dish recorded a sudden echo bouncing off the cruiser, an echo like a hand opening. The shadow in the stars moved just a little, and a thin sliver of light slid out from its edge. Not a beam, not a missile, more like a line drawn by an invisible pen. It touched the cruiser's forward shield. The shield did not flare. It simply went quiet like a pond under ice. The captain felt the deck settle as systems rerouted. The navigator whispered, "We lost segment Alpha." The captain lifted his chin. "Secondary shields," he said. The crew obeyed, their hands sure, their breathing slow. "Open a wide channel," he added. The comm officer nodded. The captain spoke to the dark, unknown vessel. "You are entering the patrol radius of the strongest empire. Identify yourself. State intent. Hold position." His words were clean and firm. Silence answered him. Then the thin line of light traced another careful mark, not at the shields, but at empty space. The mark hung there like a thread, 5 threads, 5 lines, 5 beats. The same pattern as the first signal, only now written in light. On the array, the junior observer whispered, "It is writing on the night," the station master frowned. There was a shape forming, a shape everyone knew but no one had expected. It was the crest of old Earth, the simple shape that hung on history pages. Not a predator skull, not an angry tooth symbol, just a circle crossed by 4 calm lines. The room filled with a soft murmur. And then a second image formed beside it, a map of the patrol sector, and a single dot where the cruiser waited. The captain stared at the marks. "They are warning us," the sensor tech said, voice shaking. "Or measuring us," the navigator said. The captain felt a quiet, careful anger rise in him, not hot but cold like the dark. "We are not prey," he said, yet he did not fire. He looked again at the shadow, at the writing, at the gentle precision of the lines. Something about the calm movement made him feel like he stood in a temple. "Sir," the comm officer said. "New feed from the array." The station master appeared on the screen, her eyes tired. "We translated the sublayer hum," she said. "It is a countdown." The captain felt the deck tilt under his feet, though nothing moved. "How long?" he asked. 10 breaths, she said. Everyone on the bridge inhaled as one. The captain made his choice. "All ships, reverse along the approach vector. Do not run. Do not show panic. Do not point weapons. Move with dignity," he said. His voice spread to 100 hulls. The fleet eased backward like a tide, leaving a stone beach. 1 breath, 2. The shadow did not chase. It only watched. 5, 6. A quiet peace returned to the screens. 7, 8. The thin lines of light faded. 9, 10. The shadow closed like an eye going to sleep. Silence fell. The signal ended. The array dish shuddered as the last echo slid away. The station master leaned on the rail. The junior observer wiped sweat from his brow and realized his tea was still cold. On the cruiser, the captain exhaled and bowed his head. "We met a step," he said, the sensor tech whispered. "It stepped around us." The crew looked at the viewport and saw the stars return to normal. Small and proud and far, back at high command. The report traveled upward like a spark seeking dry wood. Some would call it a test. Others a warning, some a greeting, but the junior observer, who had first seen the thin line on the screen, wrote one private note in his log. His simple words carried no fear, only truth. "We were measured and allowed to remain," he wrote, and as he closed the log, he felt the strange comfort of a door that had not slammed but had simply been shown. Somewhere in the dark, something had lifted its foot, placed it carefully beside them and moved on, leaving only the pattern of its step behind. The black between stars felt like a held breath as the shape stepped out of the dark at last. Not with noise, not with flashing lights, but with a slow, sliding grace that made every watcher feel small and very awake. The human warship did not look like the ships of the strongest empire. It did not wear color, it did not show rank. It was a long blade of shadow with thin lines along its skin, like quiet scars. It came without hurry and stopped just outside the patrol ring, as if it had always been there and had only now chosen to be seen. "Contact bearing 059, range decreasing. Object steady," the sensor tech whispered, her voice thin. The captain folded his hands behind his back and walked to the viewport. He looked at the thing that had written on the night. He felt the bridge crew watching him. He kept his voice calm. "Hold fire, hold posture. We will be measured again," he said, on the outer array. The junior observer pressed his palms to the edge of the console. The dish hummed. The signal beats from last shift had gone silent. But now a new whisper rose, a soft pulse that was not on any known band. The analysis unit spat symbols, then more symbols. Then a single line of plain text. "Observe the quiet part." The station master read it and frowned. "What is the quiet part?" she asked. The junior observer swallowed. "Us," he said, and he did not know why he said it. But it felt true. The human ship did not hail. It did not blink. It simply drifted a hair closer. The Empire cruiser's shields held a low glow. The captain lifted one finger. "Reduce power by 1 degree. Show we are not afraid and not hostile," he said. The navigator nodded and trimmed the field. A soft shiver ran through the hull. The comm officer opened a wide channel and spoke. "Unknown vessel, this is an authorized patrol. Identify and state intent," silence answered. Then, from the human ship, 3 points of light appeared and slid forward like small stars. Drones, perhaps, or messengers. They moved without heat, without plume. The sensor tech whispered, "They are fast, but they pretend to be slow." The captain almost smiled at that, because he saw it too, a careful act. A choice to be seen as gentle. "Track only," he said. "Do not intercept." The drone stopped a safe distance from the cruiser and turned as one. Thin panels opened on their sides and showed mirrors, not weapons, true mirrors. They caught the cruiser's own light and threw it back. The bridge crew frowned together. "What is the point?" the navigator said. The mirrors changed angle. A picture formed in the reflected glow. Not the Empire crest, not the old Earth circle, but a simple image of a hand, palm open, lines plain and human. And then the hand closed into a fist. Not tight with anger, but firm, then opened again. "They are showing control," the comm officer said. The captain nodded. "Or promise," he said. He lifted his chin and spoke to the dark again. "We see your display, we choose calm," in answer. The drones moved not toward the cruiser, but around it, tracing a slow ring. The ring touched the shield, and the shield did not flare. It softened there, like snow melting. Alarms stayed quiet. The sensor tech stared. "They are reading our skin," she said. "They are touching every seam." The captain tasted metal at the back of his throat. He thought of knives pressed to armor looking for a gap. He thought of surgeons checking a heartbeat on a support frigate behind the cruiser. A younger officer with too much pride and not enough fear whispered to his gun crew. "A test is a kind of attack," he said, "and a test can be broken." His hands moved toward a manual fire stud. The safety code blinked red. "Command lock," the gunner said. "Captain has sealed all triggers," the young officer hissed. "We will be the ship that stood up." He tapped open a maintenance port and tried to bypass the lock. At that same second, one drone paused over the frigate's bow like a listening bird. A soft spark tapped the hull, not a strike, a kiss. The frigate's weapons slate went dark with a sigh. And every angry idea on that deck fell silent too. What was that? The gunner breathed. Mercy, the older engineer said. And he closed the maintenance port with hands that shook. Back on the cruiser, the captain said, Report. The sensor tech read numbers that made no sense. They know our field frequency. They know our thermal pattern. They know the rhythm of our reactor, but they are not copying. They're just holding it in the mirrors, she said. The navigator added, They are matching our drift. They make us look still, even when we move. The captain watched the shadow ship. It stayed at the edge like a quiet mountain. What do you want? He said softly. Not into the open channel this time, more to himself. More to the idea of a thing that walks softly and changes maps. Then a voice came, not loud, not harsh, a human voice like stone rubbed smooth by water. It came in every language at once, and somehow felt like only one. Do not be first in the fire, it said. The words were simple. The bridge crew froze, as if snow had fallen across their shoulders. The station master at the array closed her eyes for a breath and opened them again. Repeat, she said. The junior observer replayed the packet. The same phrase, no code, no demand, only that single line. Do not be first in the fire. What fire? The navigator said. The captain looked at the captured reflections on the mirrors. The open hand, the closed fist, the soft ring around his ship. He thought of a match struck in darkness. He thought of fleets drawn to pride like insects to heat. A war we did not start, he said. Or a war we cannot end. The human voice did not return. Instead, the drones began to draw again. This time, the mirrors shaped a map much larger than the patrol sector. It showed bright arcs of power far away, empires pressing on empires, a tide of movement running toward a narrow throat of space. The throat where the empire liked to prove itself. The captain saw the throat and the arrow aimed through it. He saw the point where his patrol would be sent to shine and break. He did not feel anger now. Only a slow, clean fear. He spoke to High Command. His message calm and complete. Unknown vessel presents non-lethal contact. Shows strategic map with potential flashpoint. Recommends immediate re-evaluation of deployments. The reply came back too fast and too proud. Maintain posture, await reinforcements. Do not retreat. The captain read the order. He looked at his crew. He thought of the young officer on the frigate and the small mercy that had fallen on that ship. He thought of the open hand, then the fist. He spoke into the open channel once more. We hear you, he said to the human ship. We will not be first, but we will not be last either. We will choose the narrow path between fear and pride. A quiet laugh came from the comm officer's throat without her meaning to. Not a rude laugh, a surprised one. Sir, she said, that sounded like a prayer. The captain gave a small, tired smile. Maybe it is, he said. Then the twist came like a soft turn of a key. The drone's mirrors darkened. And for a single breath, the cruiser saw not reflections, but the true face of the human ship through those mirrors. A glimpse like a door opening an inch. Inside the shadow there were lights, not many, small and warm, moving in a pattern like a heart. Not a cold machine after all, not a ghost blade, but a thing with a center that chose. A thing with people who breathed and had steady hands, the sensor tech whispered. They wanted us to see they are not a monster, she said. They wanted us to know a person is looking back. The drones closed their panels and drifted home. The human ship turned with a grace that made the stars shiver. It did not run. It did not stalk. It simply moved away and folded behind a thin seam of dark. The seam closed without sound. The patrol ships hung in a ring of quiet. The captain let out a breath that felt like it had waited a lifetime inside his chest. The comm officer said softly, Message from the array. They confirmed everything. The captain nodded. Send this to every ship, he said. The lesson is simple. Do not be first in the fire. He looked at the place where the seam had been and added, almost to himself, and when someone opens a hand, try not to strike it on the outer array. The junior observer finally took a sip of his cold tea and winced at the taste. He wrote his second private note. The words were simple, like the first. The human ship arrived and showed a mirror. We saw ourselves, we saw them, we stepped back. The sky did not break, and for the first time since the thin line had scratched the screen, he smiled, not from relief only, but from a strange hope that felt like a small lamp set on a long road. A light that said, "Walk carefully and you may live." The Empire fleet gathered in silence, 100 ships drifting in the black with their lights dimmed. Each captain had been told the same thing. Hold position, wait for orders, do not provoke, but beneath the calm. Tension moved like fire under glass. Every crew knew what had happened on the patrol line. The shadow ship that came without warning, the drones that drew maps and mirrors, the voice that spoke only once. "Do not be first in the fire." Those words sat heavy on every deck. On the command carrier, the High Admiral stood with his hands clasped. He was a tall figure armored by years of victory, yet his eyes kept flicking to the quiet display where the patrol captain's report glowed. "A warning," the Admiral said softly, "or a trap," his second in command. A sharp-eyed officer with a scar down her jaw answered without hesitation, "It is both, sir. Humans are known for that. They show mercy with one hand and strike with the other." The Admiral turned toward the viewport. The stars looked unchanged, but he did not trust them anymore. The junior observer at the outer array had been called to testify. His voice shook as he spoke across the channel. "It was not mercy alone, it was measurement. They touched us. They left us standing." The Admiral studied him like one might study a crack in armor. "And you believe this is a kindness?" he asked. The young man swallowed. "No, sir. I believe it was a choice," the scarred officer cut in. "Then let us remind them of our choices. We are the strongest," she said. But the Admiral lifted a hand to silence her. "Strength is easy when the enemy is loud. It is harder when the enemy whispers," he said before more could be argued. The fleet sensors caught a ripple, faint but wide. A curtain of distortion at the far edge of the sector. Crews stiffened, comms filled with clipped reports. "Contact, unknown mass, size indeterminate." The voices came fast. "Vector aligned with us." The Admiral leaned forward, his chest tight. "Show me," he ordered. The screen shifted, the ripple thickened, stars bent. And then the human warship stepped through. Not alone this time, not a shadow by itself, but followed by smaller shapes, dark frigates moving like wolves behind a hunter. The fleet whispered with fear. "How many?" someone asked, and count unclear. "Systems jammed," the reply came. The scarred officer grinned sharp. "They have revealed their hand. Now we crush them," she said. The Admiral said nothing. His eyes locked on the lead vessel, the same long blade of shadow, unchanged. As if battles meant nothing to it. It drifted forward, slow, measured, and then it stopped, "Sir. They are within strike range," a voice called. "Oh, we can fire first," another said. The Admiral finally spoke. "No," his second snapped. "If we wait, they will." But the Admiral shook his head. "Listen," he said. The bridge grew quiet. And in the silence came the same beat as before. 5 steady pulses, then a pause, then 5 more. "It is the same," the junior observer whispered. His voice carried through the comm relay, the same step, but this time something changed after the 5th beat. A second rhythm began, slower, deeper, a counterbeat. It pulsed through the fleet's hulls, rattling decks, turning stomachs 2 steps, crossing one another. "What does it mean?" the scarred officer demanded. The analysis crew worked with shaking hands. The result appeared, 2 warnings, 2 fires, someone muttered. The Admiral's eyes hardened. "Or 2 choices," he said without warning. One of the Empire's younger captains broke formation. His destroyer lunged forward, weapons charging. "Enough games!" His voice snapped over the open channel. "We are not prey. We are not children. I will prove it." Alarms flared, the Admiral shouted. "Hold position!" But it was too late. The destroyer fired. A spread of missiles screaming across the void. Trails of fire cutting toward the shadow ship. For a moment, the human vessel did not move. It let the weapons draw near. Then the space around it shimmered. Not with shields, but with something stranger. The missiles slowed as if caught in thick water. Their trails bent. Their warheads cracked without fire. One by one they froze, and then they drifted aside, harmless. The crew of the destroyer gasped. "Impossible," their captain whispered. And before he could say more, one of the human frigates darted forward. Faster than sight, in one blink it was there. Nose to nose with the destroyer, the comm screens lit with a single image. The same hand as before, open calm, but this time the hand closed into a fist and did not open again. The destroyer went dark, not burning, not broken. Simply quiet, every system dead, every light out, drifting like a coffin in space. The young captain screamed orders, but nothing answered him. His voice fell to static. Silence pressed down on the fleet. They did not kill him, the junior observer whispered. Not yet, the scarred officer spat. They made him an example. The admiral stared at the frozen ship, rage and fear at war in his chest. Yes, he said, an example of what happens when we strike first. The human ship sent no words, only let the destroyer drift back toward its own line, pushed by invisible hands. It floated like a broken toy until the fleet caught it. Medics rushed to scan. The crew lived, shaken but alive, not one injured, but none of their systems could be restored. Their ship was a shell. The admiral turned back to the viewport. They gave us a choice, he said, to fight and fall, or to hold and see. His second slammed her fist on the rail. We should not kneel. We should burn them from the sky, she hissed. But the admiral's voice cut her like a blade. And if we strike and the galaxy burns with us, what will we have proven? That pride weighs more than survival, he said. The bridge went quiet. From the human vessel came one last twist, a final image drawn in light. Not a hand this time, not a map, but a mirror once more. In it the Empire fleet saw itself proud, vast, armed, but behind it a shadow loomed larger, a tide of fire and war moving through the galaxy. Greater than any empire, greater than any fleet. They are not here to destroy us, the junior observer said slowly. They are here to warn us something worse is coming. The admiral stood straighter. The fear in him now sharpened into something colder. Then we will listen, he said. The scarred officer turned away in anger, but she did not argue. The fleet held still, watching the shadow ship, waiting for it to make the next move. But like before, it simply turned, slow, calm, and slid back into the dark, the smaller frigates following, the seam of shadow closing behind them. When silence returned, the admiral spoke to every ship. His voice strong, we faced them and lived. Because they allowed it, remember this, we are not the strongest, not anymore. But we may yet survive if we learn to step with care. In his private log, he wrote a line that no one else would read. The day will come when the fire arrives, and when it does, the humans will not be first nor last, but they will walk through it, and we must decide if we follow. The fleet hung heavy in the dark, wounded pride sitting like stone in every chest. The destroyer that had dared to fire floated lifeless among them, its crew alive but powerless, its body nothing more than a warning. The admiral stood still at the viewport, his reflection pale in the glass. The scarred officer at his side whispered, "We cannot let this stand, sir. Every empire will mock us if we return with this story. They will say we bowed," but the admiral's voice was calm, almost too calm. "Better mocked than burned," he said. The junior observer on the outer array leaned forward on his console, eyes locked on the thin traces the human ship had left behind. "Faint energy marks like footprints on snow," he whispered to the station master. "They went dark, but not gone. They are still here." "Watching," the master frowned. "Can you prove it?" The boy shook his head. "Not yet, but I feel it across the fleet." Chatter stirred, crews spoke in low voices, some with fear, others with anger. One young officer said to his friend, "They humiliated us, stripped a destroyer bare without a shot." "That is not mercy, that is cruelty," the friend answered. "Or warning," the officer spat. "A warning is a threat, and a threat demands an answer." The admiral called a meeting on the command deck. Captains' voices echoed across channels. Arguments rose like storm waves. One captain cried, "They made us weak in front of our own crews." "They will never obey us now," another argued. "They showed us something greater coming. Perhaps they spared us for that reason." The scarred officer slammed her fist. "Humans are predators. They do not spare. They stalk, they test, and then they consume." The admiral let them argue until the room grew tired. Then he spoke, his voice cutting clean. "We do not fight shadows with blind rage. We wait, we learn, we adapt. Silence followed him. But silence was not agreement. Hours stretched, the void quiet. Then a faint tremor rippled through the senses. The scarred officer stiffened. "They return," she hissed. But the screens showed not the human ship this time, but something else. A vast mass sliding in from the far edge of the map. Glowing hot with energy. Another fleet, the navigator said. Unknown signature. The symbols burned red. The analysis unit screamed with alerts. Aggressive charge detected. The admiral narrowed his eyes. "Not human," he said. "Different power trace." The scarred officer's lips curled. Then perhaps the warning was real. The fleet held its breath as the new ships came closer. Dozens, then hundreds, a swarm of brutal design. Their hulls jagged like knives, their energy weapons sparking like open fire. "Invaders," someone whispered. "Not Empire." "Not human," the admiral nodded. "Another player." The invader fleet moved with reckless speed. No hesitation, no diplomacy. They charged straight toward the Empire line. Alarms blared. Crews scrambled to stations. The scarred officer's face lit with grim joy. "At last, a fight we can win," she said. The admiral raised his hand. Hold," he commanded. But the invaders gave no pause. Their weapons lit the dark. The first blast struck a small frigate at the edge of the formation. Fire tore across its hull. Screams filled the comm before cutting to static. The admiral's heart pounded. "Shields up, all ships. Brace." The fleet hardened its line. Plasma and beams rained against them. Explosions echoed in the void. "Sir, they mean to break us," a captain shouted. The admiral's teeth clenched. "Then we will show them we are not broken," he said. The Empire ships answered, lines of fire cutting back. Brilliant arcs tearing into the swarm. Invaders shattered, some spun lifeless. Others exploded in blooms of fire. For a moment pride returned. "We can hold," the scarred officer said, her voice fierce. But then the swarm split, fast and sharp, cutting around the Empire line, striking from two sides. "They are herding us," the navigator cried. "Pushing us into the throat." The admiral's stomach sank. He remembered the map the humans had shown. The throat of space where battles turned to graves. "Sir, they predicted this." The junior observer's voice cracked through the channel from the array. "The humans showed this exact move." The admiral's hands gripped the rail. "Then it was no threat, it was a lesson," he said. Explosions shook the command carrier. Systems flickered. Panic rippled across the fleet. "Orders!" the scarred officer shouted. "What do we do?" Before he could answer, a deep sound rolled through the void. The same heavy tone the humans had used before. The invader fleet paused for a heartbeat. Their formation faltered. Then from the black seam above, the shadow ship returned, its dark blade sliding into view, smaller frigates flanking it like wolves again. But this time no silence, no slow drift. This time they moved like hunters unleashed. A single line of light cut across the dark, splitting the swarm in half. Human weapons fired with precision, beams that bent space, shells that screamed without sound. Invader ships broke like dry twigs. Fireballs lit the sky. The Empire fleet watched in awe and terror. "They came back," a captain whispered. "Not for us," the admiral said. "For the fire." The human warship carved through the swarm, every strike exact, every movement sharp. Invader ships that had crushed empires for centuries fell in moments. The scarred officer trembled. "How can they wield such power so easily?" the admiral answered. "Because they do not wait for pride, they wait for need." In minutes the swarm was broken. Survivors fled into the void. The humans did not chase. They stopped at the throat, silent again, their dark hull glowing faint with battle heat. The admiral opened a channel, his voice low. "Why help us?" he asked. No answer came. Only the echo of the earlier words played back across the comm. "Do not be first in the fire." The scarred officer looked at the admiral with wide eyes. "We were not first, they were, and they burned the enemy to ash." The admiral shook his head. "No, they did not burn for us, they burned for themselves. And we were spared by their shadow." The Empire fleet limped, wounded but alive, and for the first time in history, The strongest looked at themselves and saw weakness. The Admiral wrote his final report with slow hands. The humans did not come as conquerors. They came as firewalkers, and we followed behind. The galaxy will not be the same again. He set down the pen, looked once more at the quiet stars, and whispered, "The day of the strongest has ended." The battlefield still burned in the silence of space. Broken ships drifted like bones. Flames flickered out into the cold void. The Empire fleet hung scattered, alive but scarred. Crews worked to seal ruptures and gather survivors. The Admiral stood at the viewport of his carrier, watching the human warship at the edge of the throat. It loomed in silence, dark and patient. Not moving to finish them, not speaking, only watching. "They saved us," a young officer whispered. Voice shaking, the scarred commander turned sharply. "Do not mistake it for kindness. They destroyed the invaders because it served them. Not because they cared for us." Her words were sharp, but even she could not hide the unease in her eyes. The Admiral said nothing, his hands tight on the rail. On the comm lines across the fleet, voices clashed. Some crews spoke of hope, that maybe humans were allies. Others spat with rage, saying it was humiliation, that the strongest empire had been reduced to frightened children. One captain shouted across the channel, "If they can fight like gods, why leave us alive? Why not take the galaxy for themselves?" Another answered, "Because they do not want thrones. They want fire." The arguments burned hotter than the wrecks outside. At the outer array, the junior observer stared at the new readings. His console glowed with strange lines of code pouring from the human ship. He called out, "Station Master, they are sending data." She rushed to his side. The symbols twisted into maps, charts, equations, too fast to follow, then stopped on a single phrase, simple words in every language. "Prepare for the storm." Her eyes narrowed. "What storm?" she asked, the boy whispered. "Something worse than this." Back on the carrier, the Admiral called the fleet captains into council. Their voices filled the chamber. One said, "We should strike them now, before they turn on us." Another snapped, "Strike them after what we just saw. You call that courage?" "I call it suicide." The scarred commander stepped forward. "We must not kneel. If they are fire, we must show steel." The Admiral's voice cut through, calm but heavy. "If steel cannot stand in fire, it melts." Silence followed him, but silence carried no peace. Then the twist came. The destroyer that had been silenced before flickered with sudden light. Its dead systems sparked alive for one brief moment. Alarms screamed. A message burned across every fleet screen. "They chose you," it said. Then the ship went dark again. The crews froze. Whispers filled the decks. "What does it mean?" the navigator asked. The scarred commander frowned. "It means nothing but fear. A trick." The Admiral shook his head slowly. "No, it means a burden." The human warship moved at last, sliding forward, its shadow covering the wreckage of invader ships. Beams of pale light reached out from its hull, pulling the remains together, shaping them. The crews gasped. "They are rebuilding," someone said. "No," the Admiral whispered. "They are showing us," before their eyes. The wrecks of the enemy were twisted into a single massive spear of metal and fire, a weapon made from bones of the fallen. The humans left it hanging there, silent, a warning written in steel. A soft sound filled every ship, not words this time, but a low hum that wrapped around the bones of the fleet. It felt like breath against their necks. The scarred commander clutched the rail. "What do they want from us?" she hissed. The junior observer's voice came across the comm. Small but steady. "They want us to learn, not to fight." "Not yet," the Admiral asked him. "How do you know?" The boy's answer was simple. "Because they let us live twice." As tension grew, the invaders returned, a smaller wave. Desperate survivors rallying. They came screaming from the dark. Broken but hungry for blood, the Empire fleet panicked. Systems strained, weapons recharged. But before they could fire, the human warship struck fast and merciless. It shattered the survivors in a heartbeat, and then, instead of finishing them, it opened a channel and let the wreckage fall toward the Empire fleet. "Why throw them at us?" a captain cried. The scarred commander shouted, "It is a test! They want to see if we can fight for ourselves." the Admiral barked orders. "Form lines, target debris, fire together," beams and cannons roared. Wreckage shattered into fragments, crews cheered weakly. For once, not as prey, but as fighters who had survived on their own when the last fragment burned. The human warship sent one final message across the stars, 3 words only. Not the end. Then it turned away, slow and steady, disappearing back into the seam of dark once more. The scarred commander whispered, "They treat us like children." The Admiral stared at the fading shadow. "No, like witnesses," he said. That night, the Empire fleet gathered their wounded and counted their dead. Pride broken, strength shaken, yet still alive. The junior observer wrote in his log, "They left us a spear and a warning. They are not conquerors. They are fire that chooses when to burn. And today, they spared us." His hand trembled as he wrote the last line. "The galaxy will remember this day, not as our victory, but as the day we learned the strongest can be crushed, and the fire walks where it chooses." The Empire fleet drifted in uneasy silence, their ships scarred and their pride broken. Engineers worked around the clock to patch wounds, and medics whispered of lives saved and lost. The Admiral stood alone at the viewport of his carrier, his reflection pale against the shattered stars beyond the wrecks. The massive spear of metal the humans had built still floated, a monument of fire and warning. It glowed faintly, as if waiting for a hand strong enough or foolish enough to use it. The scarred commander entered quietly, her voice low but edged with anger. "Sir, the crews are restless. They whisper of betrayal. Some believe the humans are preparing to strike next." The Admiral did not turn, his eyes fixed on the spear. "And what do you believe?" he asked. She hesitated, then answered, "I believe no empire survives long when it bows." He finally turned, his face lined with exhaustion, "And none survives long when it burns too soon." At the outer array, the junior observer stared at his console. Symbols from the human warship still trickled across the screen. Not words, not maps, just numbers. Long lines of shifting equations, he whispered. "It's a countdown." The station master leaned over his shoulder. "To what?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not time, not distance, something else." The fleet stirred as new signals rose. Faint tremors at the edge of the system. Scouts confirmed it within moments. "The invaders regroup," the report came. "A larger wave, hundreds, maybe more. They come fast." The bridge filled with the sharp buzz of fear. The scarred commander clenched her fist. "They will crush us this time, unless we strike first." The Admiral raised his voice above the noise. "Silence," he commanded. The voices died. He spoke with slow care. "The humans told us, do not be first in the fire, and twice now." They proved the truth of those words. The invader swarm appeared like a storm on the horizon, jagged ships bristling with weapons, engines screaming with fury. They came without pause, without fear, ready to wipe out all that remained. Alarms rang across the Empire fleet. Crews rushed to weapons, shields rose. The scarred commander leaned close to the Admiral. "Sir, if we wait again, we die." His voice was cold. "If we strike first, we die faster." Then the twist came. The human warship returned, unfolding from the dark seam like a blade unsheathed. But this time it did not come alone. Behind it stretched more shadows, more vessels of human design. Not a fleet as vast as the invaders, but enough to chill the air on every deck, the scarred commander whispered. "There are more of them." The Admiral's eyes widened. A fraction of their strength, no doubt. The human ship sent out no greetings, no warnings. It simply moved forward, placing itself between the Empire fleet and the oncoming swarm. Its smaller escorts spread like wolves again, precise and sharp. The invaders did not hesitate. They fired, a storm of plasma and missiles rushing at the human line. The Empire crews gasped. They cannot stand against that. But the human ships moved as one. Shields rippled, weapons answered. The swarm's first line shattered before it reached them. "Look at them," the scarred commander breathed, awe softening her anger. "They fight like they are born in war." The Admiral's jaw tightened. "No, they fight like war itself is their home." Explosions tore across the void as human weapons ripped through the swarm. But the invaders did not break easily this time. They pressed harder, surrounding the human formation. "Numbers overwhelming precision," a captain shouted. "They will be drowned," the admiral's voice rang out. "All ships, prepare to support." The scarred commander snapped her head toward him. "You mean to fight beside them?" He nodded. "Yes, if they fall, so do we. But if we hold the line together, perhaps we see another dawn." For the first time, the fleet obeyed without hesitation. Empire ships surged forward, joining the humans. Beams and cannons fired in unison. The void became a sea of fire. Wrecks scattered, debris burned. The invaders screamed across open channels in rage. Still pushing, still biting, but cracks formed in their swarm. And the humans exploited every gap with merciless precision. Then came the second twist. The massive spear of metal the humans had forged earlier began to move. Slow at first, then faster, guided not by Empire hands, but by human control. Beams of light wrapped around it, dragging it into position. "They're using it," the sensor tech cried. The admiral's chest tightened. "Not a weapon for us, a weapon for them." The spear launched with a force that bent the stars. It tore through the heart of the swarm, splitting their formation in half. Dozens of invader ships crushed in a single strike. Fire blossomed brighter than suns. Silence followed for one breath. Then the swarm faltered. Some ships broke, some fled. And for the first time, the invaders looked like prey. The human warship pressed forward, finishing the broken pieces, but once again, it did not chase the survivors. It stopped, silent, its escorts gathering close. The Empire fleet stood bloodied but alive, the scarred commander whispered. "They saved us again," the admiral answered. "No, they saved themselves. And we happened to stand behind them." The human ship sent one last message. This time, not through words or maps, but through a shared image that burned across every screen. It showed the galaxy itself. Stars spread wide, but across its heart a storm of fire moved. A storm larger than any empire, larger than any war. The voice came again, steady and cold. "This is not your war, but you will burn if you stand in its path." Then silence returned. The scarred commander bowed her head. For once, without anger. "What are they?" she whispered. The admiral gave no answer. He only stared at the fading shadow of the human fleet. His voice a whisper no one else heard. "They are the fire that chooses where to walk, and we are nothing but smoke in its wake." Later, in his private log, he wrote with a shaking hand, "The galaxy has always feared the strongest empire, but now we know fear belongs to someone else. The day humanity's warship crushed the strongest was not the day we fell. It was the day we learned what true power looks like, and what it leaves behind." He closed the log and looked out into the stars, where the fire had gone, and knew the galaxy would never forget.